Jai Ma Kamakhya, Jai Bhairava. So I'm coming in a video after quite a long time. I've been busy with my own practices and travels, very extensive travels for sadhanas and various other things related to both the Kamakhya case as well as also my own practices and sadhanas that need to be done. In this video, I will address a few common questions that have piled up that comes repeatedly, though I have already sort of answered them earlier, but I will still go through them once again. The first question that comes again from a lot of people is doing the Naama Japa of Bhairava, Bhairava Naama, is it safe? This question perhaps comes from a certain kind of mindset that had been prevalent for a long time, where Bhairava is considered to be a very fierce, aggressive and dangerous form of Shiva, and therefore his Upasana is kind of kept aloof and on the fringes. In my opinion, this is incorrect. Indeed, Bhairava is a very fierce form, no doubt about that, but having said that, there is no problem at all in doing a simple Naama Japa of Bhairava. In fact, the very name Bhairava indicates a form who might appear fierce on the surface of it, but is actually extremely kind, compassionate, and may even be explained as a deity who loves justice, truth, and honesty. Doing a Bhairava Naama Japa is absolutely and perfectly alright in a home environment without experimenting too much. Of course, there are practices related to Bhairava that are more complex and that require many different ingredients, that require a certain level of depth in the practice and is not suitable for everybody. But we need not go into that zone. So long as a simple Naama Japa is done, there is absolutely no fear, nothing to worry about. In fact, over the last 1.5 years, when the Ashtami Tithi Vishesh Sadhanas of Bhairava started, from that point till now, we have in the last Ashtami almost a count of 91 lakhs, or more than that, have been 91 lakhs of japa has been performed of the simple Nama Mantra. So, point being, there are innumerable number of people who have been doing this. They keep mailing, and it's just a flood of emails in my mailbox. It's not even possible to respond to them. But the basic trend that I see is that this Upasana, it's very simple to do, but it also brings about a sense of discipline, a direction, a consistency in the practice of whoever has taken up this japa. And this is apart from the fact that it has also brought about quite a bit of material and spiritual progress to some people. However, my suggestion would be, do not look for immediate results. As you keep doing this japa, it is going to cause a change, a modification in your mind and body. This is the Bhairava's primary domain, is to transform you and make you capable for actual Shakti Upasana. He is the one who knows the Kshetra, he is the one who creates the Adhara. Adhara is the mind and body, and he brings about stability, he brings about strength, he brings about courage, honesty, discipline, consistency, and a degree of fearlessness. So you learn to overcome your fears and go ahead and even be functional in circumstances or situations which would otherwise have been troublesome for you at an earlier point. So those are the primary things to look forward to. If anybody keeps continuing this practice for a few years, I am quite sanguine that this is going to bring a strong spiritual and material development in that individual. So this is sort of largely, almost I would say 70% of the trend that I have observed over the last 1.5 years, which makes it very clear as evidence that had this been a dangerous practice, then it would have caused a lot of problems to many people. On the contrary, the amount of positive development that has brought in this practice in people is good enough evidence why a simple Nama Japa of Bhairava is a very effective practice for just about anybody who is keen to do it. Bhairava, after all, is none other than Lord Shiva, only in a more aggressive form, because he is close to the earth plane. His presence is in the physical plane like us. And because this plane is filled with ignorance, tamas, and very dense material, therefore he takes on that aggressive form in order to remove that ignorance and bring about a sense of light and spirituality and divinity into an individual's life. The second question that also comes in is what happens. So, basic idea is that the Nama Japa is quite safe to do. You can carry on. Of course, there is no force. If somebody doesn't want to do it, nobody is asking you to do it. There's no force about that. But if somebody is already doing it, do not be deluded, do not be misled by wrong advices from people that this can cause some sort of harm. It is not going to cause any harm. This japa by itself does not cause any harm. If at all somebody has faced any difficulty, then it is most likely perhaps due to some other, it could be graha badhas that are working, it could be pitru doshas, it could be various other things that are the cause of some of the other kind of problems. As I have mentioned earlier in different interviews and other places, that in case somebody is suffering from pitru related problems, those have to be cleared, those have to be sort of sorted out in the right way and in the right place and in the right manner in which it is to be done. No amount of mantra upasana, no amount of puja, no amount of meditation on any deity is going to remove pitru related problems by itself. Similarly, if there are sarpa related doshas, sarpa dosha, there too the individual has to go to those specific places and perform those rituals in order to be free of the problems that can arise in someone's life due to sarpa related issues from past birth. Now, many people have asked what should they do if they have been doing the Bhairava Naama Japa lakhs of times. First of all, this itself is a very steady and stable sadhana. The idea of upasana is not only to just hit a certain high number of japas. That is, of course, the first basic crucial method. We stick to the count of japas because it helps steady the mind, gives it direction to the mind. Without the count, without your mala, you will very likely not be able to progress much in japa, because the mind by itself doesn't have that kind of self-discipline, self-regulatory mechanism by which it can take somebody to the higher plane. In order that this and this is understood through centuries and centuries of observation and practice, and that is why the great masters were very particular that when you are doing japa, you focus on the count, you have your mala, you don't just do it randomly, sit and mentally count. No, only in this way there is some kind of structure, discipline that comes into your practice. Having said that, if somebody has already performed lakhs of japa, there are few things to keep in mind. Do not stop the practice, because the next stage of the practice will depend a lot on the individual and their level of concentration and dedication to the deity. This is very important. So for some individual, it is possible that after they complete 1 or 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs of this mantra japa, they may start experiencing a lot of spiritual growth and development. Whereas there may be people who may have to continue this practice for much more. It depends quite an amount on the purva janma samskaras that they bring from past lives, the tendencies that are there. So one of the key features of spiritual growth is to observe whether your concentration is increasing, whether you are experiencing a certain steadiness in the mind, a feeling of bliss when you're doing the japa. Even if it is for a fraction of a second, it will be so strong, so powerful and so clear that your mind will crave to get back to that experience every day. When that happens, that is when you know that whatever practice you are doing, whatever japa you are doing, has started to manifest into something more powerful. This is like the first stages of a higher development in the upasaka. That's number one. So under any circumstance, do not stop the japa. Do not be under a hurry that, okay, I have completed so much japa, why is nothing happening? Because these things take time. There is a certain period of time that has to be given to every individual. Even if your mantra is perfect, even if your concentration is perfect, even if the method of upasana is perfect, still everything is under the control of Mahakal. Only when Mahakal chooses, that is when he will open the doors of spiritual progress. However, that does not mean that you don't do any practice, because it's like a loop where if you do not practice, then that is taken into account, and that opening into the next stage is going to get delayed even further. So keep practicing and have patience. Second thing, if you have already completed a few lakhs at least of the basic Bhairava Naama Mantra, then you can consider shifting to the Batuka Bhiarava Apaduddharaka Mantra, which is a very, very powerful, very beautiful mantra, which is described from the Rudrayamala Tantras to later many of the compilation tantras, including the Brihat Tantra Sahar and the other texts. So Vatuka, as I have already mentioned, is a child form of Bhairava, is absolutely suitable to be worshipped at home. He is one of the deities who opens up the doors of Sri Vidya Tantra for anybody who is willing to go deeper. And when I say deeper, I don't mean just knowing a few paddhatis and some mantras and some texts. That's not the definition of actual spiritual growth, which is good. These are important things. But by themselves, they don't mean that that is the end of the story. So, blessings of Batuka Bhairava helps to remove a lot of obstacles from the Upasaka's life, and that is why he is known as Apaduddharaka Batuka Bhairava. Apad is an asura who was killed by Batuka when Shiva incarnated as a small child, blessed by the Shaktis and powers of Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati, as well as many of the Mahavidyas. This child form of Bhairava was able to remove that obstacle, that Apad, that Asura, completely. And this reflects in the life of the Upasaka as a form, as a deity who can sort of, remove the blockages that stop you from both material and spiritual growth. So Apaduddharaka mantra, there are variations of this mantra. Many of the texts have certain small variations, but all of them are quite effective. There is no, if it's taken from one of the standard tantras, it is perfectly all right to do the japa. As much as you can do the japa, it is excellent. In fact, once somebody starts the Apaduddharaka mantra, like any other mantra, develop a discipline, develop a number of malas that you want to do every day, and then consistently aim towards finishing a few lakh of japa. Along with that, carry on the Ashtami Tithi Vishesh Upasanas. If you're starting the Apaduddharaka mantra, do not stop the earlier Om Bhairavaya Nama. You can reduce the count of that mantra and increase the Apaduddharaka mantra, but do not completely stop the first one. That is also important. These things work in conjunction. It is not that one is exclusively separate from the other. Third important thing is that in this context of the Apaduddharaka mantra, if somebody has been doing, say, the Apaduddharaka or even the Bhairava, Om Bhairavaya Nama for quite some time and crossed a few lakh japas, then you might consider actually doing a sadhana with Sankalpa. Sankalpa is, for example, you actually make a promise to the deity that you are going to start the Upasana on XYZ day, and so many malas you will complete for so many days. Generally, it's a good idea to have an aim of, if not 1 lakh japa, but perhaps even half of it or 1/4 of it. So 250 malas or maybe 500 malas of japa you decide to do over a period of 20 days or 30 days or even 10 days, depends on this upasana. And once you take the sankalpa, then you complete the number of japa. After you complete the japa, if you know how to do a homa, then perform 1/10, the Shamsh homa of that count of japa. After that you do, there is Tarpan and Marjan that has to be done, but in case you don't know that practice, you can do double the amount of japa of that mantra. So for example, This is a very simple anushthan. So if there is a count of say 500 malas of the mantra that has to be done, japa of the mantra that you decide to do, then the number of ahutis into the fire, the homa fire, has to be 50. And 5, 1/10 of that 50, that is 5, is the number of tarpanam that has to be done to Batuk Bhiarava or any form of Bhairava. If it's Om Bhairava Namo, then just Bhairava. And then sort of 1/10 of 5, which is say rounding it off to about 1, you have to do Marjanam. And finally, at the end, you have to do what is called Bhojanam. You have to feed little children, or you can feed priests, Brahmin priests, or you can even feed people, kids in Veda Pathshalas, etc. Or if somebody wants to do a more elaborate and accurate method, then there is something known as the Kola Bhojanam, which is people who have Tantra Diksha, you can feed them even. That also, but that is more costly and more complicated process doing that. It is not as simple as just providing a meal, because then that meal is consumed in a certain particular method of upasana. It's not just normal eating food. Either way, the important idea is that if you're not able to go through this full process, still take a decide to do an anushtanam, which is like say 500 malas or 1 lakh, up to you, whatever you can do. And after you finish that count, then feed people, and maybe go to any Shiva temple and light a diya, light a lamp, and tell the deity that you have done this japa to the best of your ability. But feeding people is important. Without that, that is the one step which cannot be skipped under any circumstance. Japa and feeding people, these two have to be done. Okay, so in this way you build up your mental and your psychological stamina to do upasana. That is how you build up your capacity for tapasya, because this is in turn, eventually in the long run, it is going to cause you a lot of benefits, and it is going to help you move forward. So as I say, it is not about a specific result that has to be attained immediately, but as you keep practicing without breaking the flow, and if you consistently carry this on for a few years in the right method, in the right manner, you will definitely experience many changes both in the spiritual and material aspects due to the blessings of Bhairava. There's no doubt about that. So after the apart from the Batuk Bhiarava Apaduddharaka mantra, there is another thing that anybody who is already doing the Bhairava Japa should start doing henceforth. Every specifically people who are doing Vatuka mantras, Batuk Bhairava mantras, every Sankranti, on the day when the sun, the Surya changes Rashi from one Rashi to the other, Sankranti day, chant the Ashtottara Shatanam of Batuk Bhairava at least once or 3 times. While doing that, light a diya, offer some bhog, naivedyam, anything that has been prepared at home, but it has to be in a separate plate, the way you offer it to the deities. It cannot be in a plate that is used normally. So offer any kind of food, bhog, naivedyam to the deity, light 1 lamp, diya, in the name of Batuk Bhairava, and chant the Ashtottara Shatanama of Batuka with either once or 3 times every Sankranti day, specifically if you are doing Batuk Upasana. This will help to bring some positive developments and also protect the Upasaka from various other difficulties or troubles that are coming his way, that may be coming his way. Apart from this, if somebody has already been doing a lot of Bhairava Japa and has crossed few lakhs of the basic Bhairava mantra, he or she can start also doing consistently Durga Upasana, the 32 names of Ma Durga. That's fantastic to do. The more you do, the better. There's no limits to how much one can do that practice. Or one may even start doing the Kamakhya Stortram. Start once or twice, and once you get familiar with it, do it at least 9 times every day or more. Same way, you keep doing more and more. If somebody is very intense in his or her practice, then one can try a 9-day period of doing the Kamakhya Stortram 1250 times, 1250 times. If you can keep an Akhanda Diya, that is fantastic. Offer any kind of sweets as Naivedyam or Bhog to the deity. Wear a red dress, sit and do 1250 times. After you complete that, you can daily carry on a few times, maybe 3 times or 5 or 9 times every day. This will bring some blessings of the goddess Kamakhya into the Upasaka's life. So it balances the energy of Bhairava very well. So therefore we see that, if coming to again summarizing the question, what happens if somebody has been doing lakhs of japa of the basic mantra? Either you start the Batuk Bhiarava Upasana, Batuk Bhiarava Moola Mantra. Below the description, in the description, I will be mentioning one version of the mantra. As I mentioned, there are multiple versions of this Moola Mantra, and the multiple versions change also based on the tantras. I have seen the Rudra Amara Tantra version of this mantra slightly different from the version that is present in the Brihad Tantrasar and other texts, but all of them are equally effective. So I will be mentioning one of those mantras in the description. If you are not aware, you can start doing japa of that mantra, or one can start doing 32 names of Ma Durga, or one can start doing the Kamakhya Stortram as a proper regular sadhana and integrate that into their daily practice. So this is the way to go about. Apart from this, of course, as usual, as always, it's consistency, discipline and patience. These are the 3 things that will eventually cause a transformation. In fact, for those people who think that any spiritual practice will bring about an immediate and quick change and transformation in them, say within a period of 10 days or 2 months or 3 months, be very skeptical of those. It's not that you cannot change so quickly. There's a transformation that is possible in a short period of time, but whether it is going to be permanent, whether it will last for long, that cannot be said. Anything that does not have, is not built on a base of hard work and sufficient time that is spent into it, that change, that practice, that Shakti is not going to last very long. There is absolutely no shortcuts in sadhana. All else, whether there's a magic happening, some prayoga, this, that, etc., everything is on one side. At the end of the day, look at yourself and see how much time you have dedicated to it, how many years you have been practicing, whether you have been consistent or not. If these things are in place, consistency, discipline, patience, there is absolutely no doubt in the world, no doubt anywhere, that eventually one day you are going to reach, because you are already on the right track. Everything else is secondary. So with this note, I will conclude the video, and I hope that for those people who have been asking about what to do after lakhs of japa, they have some clarity and direction in which they can proceed and take their upasana. Thank you. Jai Kamakhya, Jai Bhairava.